Hikigaya Hachiman is your everyday pathetic loner believing youth is nothing but evil. Despite being an alpha male, he eventually gets dragged into a special club tasked with helping people along with the most popular ice queen of his class. However, before any of this, Hikigaya submits an offensive essay about youth to his teacher, Shizuka. The essay's content angers Shizuka, and when Hikigaya tries to explain, it only frustrates her more, nearly leading her to hit him in a fit of rage. Terrified by her reaction, Hikigaya is taken by Shizuka to the school's service club as punishment. There, he meets Yukino Yukinashita, a stunning girl sitting alone. Hikigaya is captivated by her presence, while Yukino, clearly bothered by the sudden interruption, asks why Shizuka brought Hikigaya along. She also remarks on Hikigaya's appearance, which embarrasses him, making him remember that Yukino belongs to the elite class, known for scoring above 90%. Shizuka explains, in her odd and comical way, that Yukino should help Hikigaya improve his social skills by allowing him to join the club. Yukino reluctantly agrees, though she's not thrilled by the idea. When Shizuka leaves, the room falls into an awkward silence, making Hikigaya think back on his painful past. He tries to intimidate Yukino to break the tension but quickly loses his nerve when she asks him to sit down. Yukino introduces him to the club, explaining its purpose of helping students with personal growth and problems. They soon get into a heated debate about Hikigaya's issues. Yukino believes she's helping him fix his social shortcomings, but Hikigaya insists he doesn't want to change just to be liked by others. Yukino finds this frustrating and scolds him, but Shizuka interrupts and proposes a competition between the two. The winner would get the power to boss the other around. Both accept the challenge, seeing it as a way to assert dominance over each other. The next day, Hikigaya returns to the club room and starts to notice that Yukino, like himself, is also a loner with no friends. This realization creates a bond of understanding between them. Encouraged by this new connection, Hikigaya tries to ask Yukino to be his friend. However, before he can finish, Yukino coldly rejects him, crushing his hope in an instant. Shortly afterward, Yui, a bubbly classmate, enters the club with a request. She needs help baking cookies for someone special. Yukino, despite her best efforts, struggles to guide Yui in the kitchen as her baking skills are lacking. Frustrated and disappointed in herself, Yui considers quitting, but Hikigaya steps in with a clever tactic, using reverse psychology. He tells Yui that it's not the perfection of the cookies that matters but the effort and thought behind them. His words resonate with Yui, who realizes that people appreciate being remembered even if the gesture isn't perfect. The following week, Yui surprises them by returning to the club room with freshly baked cookies. She offers them as a token of gratitude for their help. Grateful for their support, Yui decides to become more involved in the club's activities. She invites Yukino and Hikigaya to have lunch with her, sharing her disastrous cookies, much to Hikigaya's amusement. During a class, Hikigaya starts thinking about the pros and cons of social groups, comparing them to the way animals behave in the wild. As he watches his classmates interact, he imagines himself as a solitary bear, finding comfort in the idea of being alone. He even draws a picture of a bear in his assignment to express this thought. Damn! However, his daydreaming is cut short when his teacher, Shizuka, catches him doodling and scolds him for it. Hikigaya responds by teasing Shizuka about her age, which earns him a playful punch from her. Shizuka then shifts the conversation to ask about the progress of the service club. She reveals that she deliberately kept Hikigaya and Yukino apart from others in the school because of their unique, often cynical views on society. Shizuka also explains that Yukino's behavior stems from how society often judges and criticizes those who think differently. Later, during the lunch break, it's raining heavily, so Hikigaya stays inside his classroom. As he observes, he notices Yui trying to distance herself from her popular social group, led by Yumiko. Yui seems eager to have lunch with Yukino instead, but she struggles to come up with a reason to leave the group. Seeing this, Hikigaya considers stepping in to help her, but he quickly backs off when Yumiko's intimidating presence scares him. Just then, Yukino arrives and asks Yui why she's late for lunch. Yukino immediately senses the situation when Yumiko confronts her in an aggressive tone. A tense argument breaks out between Yukino and Yumiko, but it is soon interrupted by Hayato, another classmate, who steps in to calm things down. The rest of the students quietly leave the classroom, leaving Yui and Yumiko to talk about their issues. Outside the room, Hikigaya and Yukino listen in as Yui finally opens up and honestly expresses how she wants to be treated by others. Later that day, after school, Yoshiteru, a student known for his wild imagination, visits the service club with a special request. He asks for their help in reviewing a light novel he wrote. The club agrees to assist him, although Hikigaya isn't too enthusiastic about it. That evening, while walking home, Hikigaya has a flashback about a dog in a car while crossing the street, but his thoughts are interrupted when he runs into Yoshiteru again. That night, Hikage and Yukino start reading Yoshidaru's novel, which turns out to be a difficult and tedious task. Meanwhile, Yui is sound asleep, not helping with the review. The next day, Yukino provides her brutally honest feedback on Yoshidaru's novel. Although her critique is harsh and leaves Yoshidaru feeling a bit down, he also appreciates their honest opinion. He thanks them for taking the time to review his work and promises to bring more stories for them to read in the future. Despite the tough feedback, Yoshidaru feels grateful for the club's help and looks forward to improving his writing with their advice. During gym class, Hikage spends his time practicing tennis by hitting the ball against a wall since he doesn't have a partner. Later, during lunch, he enjoys eating alone at his favorite spot, enjoying the fresh sea breeze coming from the nearby shore. However, his peaceful moment is interrupted when Yui shows up and strikes up a conversation with him. Soon after, Seika joins them, and Hikage is caught off guard by Seika's appearance, initially mistaking him for a girl. The next day, Hikage gets paired with Seika in gym class. Seika invites him to join the tennis club, but Hikage feels unsure about what to do. Seeking guidance, he goes to Yukino for advice. Shortly after, Yui arrives with Seika, and they ask for the service club's help in practicing tennis. Yukino agrees, and over the next few days, the group helps Seika improve his tennis skills by participating in Yukino's strict practice drills. During one of their practice sessions, Yumiko and her group unexpectedly show up, demanding to use the tennis court. Hayato and Yumiko suggest a deal. Hikage and Yui would compete against them in a doubles tennis match, with the winner earning the right to use the court and assist Seika in his practice. As the match progresses, Yumiko and Hayato begin gaining an advantage over Hikage and Yui. However, things take a turn when Yui accidentally sprains her ankle during the game. Despite the setback, Yui refuses to give up and persuades Yukino to take her place in the match. With renewed determination, Yukino steps onto the court and quickly takes control of the game, turning the match in their favor. However, as the match continues, Yukino's stamina starts to wane, and she decides to hand the responsibility over to Hikage. Using his sharp observation skills, Hikage notices the way the sea breeze affects the tennis ball's movement. He comes up with a strategy to use the wind to his advantage, executing a well-timed pop fly to secure the winning point, leading his team to victory. Despite winning the match, the service club's success is overlooked when Hayato steps in to protect Yumiko from hurting herself after Hikage's final serve. The game ends with Hikage, Yukino, and Yui leaving the court. Seika expresses his thanks to Hikage for all the help, but Hikage, as usual, makes a sarcastic comment about how the god of romantic comedy seems to enjoy pairing people together in ways that feel like there are hidden romantic undertones. Later, back at the club room, Hikage walks in at the wrong moment and accidentally catches Yui and Yukino while they're in the middle of changing clothes. In an unfortunate twist of events, Hikage gets accidentally hit on the head with a tennis racket, causing him to briefly lose consciousness. Right before passing out, Hikage jokingly thinks about how the god of romantic comedies must have a strange sense of humor for putting him in such awkward situations. On their way to school, Hikage and his younger sister, Komachi, have a conversation about a car accident that Hikage was involved in just before starting high school. Komachi mentions that the other person involved in the accident attends Hikage's school, which piques his curiosity. When they arrive at school, Hikage is soon lectured by Shizuka, his teacher, for his workplace visit survey. He had written about wanting to become a house husband, which Shizuka didn't take seriously. Later, at the service club, Yui receives a mysterious text message accusing her classmates and other students of being delinquents. Curious about the message, she shares it with the rest of the club. Shortly afterward, Hayato enters the club room and asks the service club for help in stopping these texts from spreading. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, the club agrees to take on the request. As they dig deeper into the issue, the club realizes that the texts are connected to the upcoming workplace visit. Each group is only allowed 3 members, but Hayato's group consists of 4 people. The service club suspects that someone is spreading rumors to force one person out of Hayato's group. To get to the bottom of the matter, Yukino assigns Yui and Hikage the task of gathering information about the 3 suspects involved. However, Yui's friendly nature makes it difficult for her to collect any useful information. In response, Hikage decides to observe Hayato's group more closely. He notices that when Hayato is around, the group becomes lively and social, but when Hayato isn't present, the group becomes quiet and awkward. They constantly check their phones, hinting that they aren't truly close friends. Realizing this, Hikage returns to the service club and admits that he still doesn't know who sent the text. However, he explains that the behavior of Hayato's group when Hayato isn't around shows that they are more like casual acquaintances than real friends. Hikage suggests that Hayato decline to form a group with all 3 of his friends. By doing this, it would give them the chance to build stronger bonds and get to know each other better. After following Hikage's advice, Hayato returns to inform him that the text messages have stopped. He thanks Hikigaya for his help and expresses hope that his 3 friends will have a better chance to connect now. Following the resolution, Hayato asks Hikigaya to join his group for the workplace visit, along with Seika. However, Hayato quickly finds himself surrounded by several other students who want to join his group, making it difficult to stick to the original plan. Hikigaya arrives late for his after-school prep class, where he receives a stern scolding from Shizuka. Another student, Saki, also arrives late. Later, by coincidence, Hikigaya runs into Yukino, Yui, and Seika at a local cafe. They are there for an after-school study session. To their surprise, Hikigaya's sister, Komachi, and her friend Teishi, who is Saki's younger brother, join them. Teishi expresses concern for his sister, Saki, who often comes home late at night. Recognizing this as an issue the service club could help with, Yukino agrees to investigate Saki's situation. The service club tries various approaches to connect with Saki at school, but their efforts fail to yield results. Eventually, they receive a tip from Teishi that Saki works at a cafe. This clue leads them to narrow down their search to 2 possible cafes. After some investigation, they discover that Saki works at an adult-themed cafe. To blend into the environment, Yukino, Yui, and Hikigaya dress up appropriately and head to the location to confront Saki. Yukino uses Saki's age as leverage, trying to convince her to leave the job. However, Saki reveals that she has no intention of quitting and then shocks the group by exposing Yukino's wealthy background. She implies that Yukino can't possibly understand her reasons for working there. This revelation deeply upsets Yukino, causing her to leave the scene with Yui. Hikigaya, however, requests that Saki meet him the following morning before school. The next day, Hikigaya gathers everyone for a meeting with Saki. He explains that Saki is working at the cafe to pay for her summer school tuition, as she doesn't want to burden her family. To solve the issue, Hikigaya suggests that Saki apply for scholarships, which would provide her with the financial support she needs without having to work at the cafe. As Hikigaya walks home with his sister Komachi, she surprises him by revealing that Yui is the owner of the dog he saved during the accident before his first year of high school. Shocked by this information, Hikigaya decides he will confront Yui about it the next day. The following day, during the workplace visit, Hikigaya is the last person to leave and unexpectedly encounters Yui, who has been waiting for him. Hikigaya, believing Yui's kindness towards him is based on guilt for the accident, tells her that he wants to sever ties with her. Hurt by his words, Yui calls him a jerk and runs away in tears. Hikigaya, reflecting on the situation, concludes that as a loner, he often misreads the intentions of girls who show him kindness. Believing it's better to remain detached, he decides to continue living a solitary existence, convinced that avoiding close relationships will spare him from further misunderstandings and emotional pain. After resetting his relationship with Yui, Hikigaya feels a sense of relief, believing that she is no longer weighed down by guilt over the past. However, Yui seems to have distanced herself from the service club, which worries Yukino. Shizuka, their teacher, pays a visit to the club and suggests that they should recruit more members. Yukino, determined to mend things with Yui, proposes celebrating her birthday over the weekend as a way to reconnect. Yukino, Hikigaya, and Komachi go shopping to find a present for Yui. While browsing, Komachi suddenly disappears, leaving Hikigaya and Yukino uncertain about what to buy. After some thought, they settle on getting Yui an apron as a birthday gift. During their outing, they bump into Yukino's older sister, Haruno, who playfully teases them about their relationship, hinting at a possible romantic connection. After Haruno leaves, Hikigaya reflects on her cheerful personality, recognizing the complexities behind her seemingly carefree attitude. While they continue shopping, a dog named Sable appears and starts playing with Hikigaya. As they wonder who the dog belongs to, Yui unexpectedly shows up. Seeing Hikigaya and Yukino together, Yui mistakenly assumes that they are on a date. Feeling awkward, she quickly leaves with Sable, but not before Yukino invites her to visit the service club on Monday to clear up their misunderstandings and talk about their relationship. On Monday, Yui returns to the club, still thinking that Hikigaya and Yukino might be dating. Hikigaya immediately clears up the confusion, and Yukino takes the opportunity to thank Yui for all the support she has given to the club. They present her with a birthday gift, and Hikigaya also gives her a present, referring to their encounter during the workplace visit. Touched by their gestures, Yui expresses her sadness at the thought of their relationship possibly coming to an end. Yukino, trying to mend the rift between them, suggests that sometimes by closing one chapter, they can start a new one, symbolizing the chance for their relationship to grow in a new way. With this, Yui feels reassured, and they leave to inform Shizuka about Yui's return to the club. Later, Yui opens Hikigaya's present, thinking it's a necklace, only to realize it is actually Sable's collar, which makes her laugh awkwardly as she exits the room. As Hikigaya prepares to leave, he notices a book that belongs to Yukino. Reflecting on her words and actions, he begins to contemplate the possibilities of what might lie ahead in their evolving relationships. pondering over the new paths they could take together. After the school year ends and summer break begins, Hikigaya is overwhelmed by a flood of messages from Shizuka. Feeling intimidated, he decides to turn off his phone to avoid further stress. Later, his sister Komachi enters his room and convinces him to accompany her outside, claiming she has completed her summer homework. Hikigaya reluctantly agrees, but once they step outside, he quickly realizes he has been tricked. Shizuka and several others, including Seika, are waiting for him. Despite feeling uneasy, Hikigaya feels a bit happier when Seika joins the group. Shizuka explains that they are all headed to Toshiba Village for a volunteer project, which involves helping guide children through a summer camp. Much to Hikigaya's annoyance, Hayato and his group also join, which Yukino finds equally frustrating. Shizuka explains that the students were enticed to participate with the promise of extra marks for the activity. She also emphasizes that working with people who have opposing personalities will help them grow and learn valuable lessons for practical life. After Shizuka's pep talk, the students are given their first task, to observe the children as they search for different checkpoints in the forest. As everyone disperses, a group of girls gets into trouble, prompting Hayato to rush in and help. Meanwhile, Yukino takes notice of a girl named Rumi, who is isolated and mocked by the other children. Hikigaya watches Hayato help with the rescue, feeling like he could never compete with someone as capable and well-liked as Hayato, even though Hayato seems to act without any ulterior motive. As they continue observing the children, Hayato tries to engage Rumi in conversation to make her feel included, but Yukino points out that such actions might only make Rumi feel worse. Later, Shizuka assigns the children the task of making lunch while instructing the students to keep observing. Hayato again tries to approach Rumi, but she retreats and instead approaches Hikigaya, asking him his name. Yukino interrupts, teasing Hikigaya by giving him a funny nickname, which triggers memories of when he was called that in the past. Yui then approaches and invites Rumi to join her friends, but Rumi declines, explaining that she has already been excluded from their group. This leads Rumi to reflect on her own past actions, realizing that she had once excluded others, which may now be happening to her. Afterward, the group shares their concerns about Rumi with Shizuka, who encourages them to find a solution. Yui, however, points out that they can't directly intervene since Rumi partially blames herself for the situation. Shizuka leaves the responsibility of helping Rumi to them. Hikigaya tries to offer some advice, but it's so convoluted that it's difficult for anyone to understand. Eventually, Yumiko takes Rumi away, implying that not everyone shares Hikigaya's way of thinking or interests. After hitting several dead ends and trying to help, everyone decides to call it a night. Needing some fresh air, Hikigaya steps outside and finds Yukino gazing up at the sky. She admits that she feels a strong desire to help Rumi because she doesn't want her to end up completely isolated, just as they have both experienced. With a somber tone, Yukino walks away, leaving Hikigaya to contemplate her words and the challenge ahead. One morning, Hikigaya is startled when Seika wakes him up and asks for his phone number. Confused, Hikigaya wonders why his phone, which he only uses as an alarm, is suddenly needed. After Seika saves his number and sends him a cute message, Hikigaya is so overwhelmed that he nearly faints. During breakfast, Shizuka outlines the day's events, which include a test of courage and a bonfire. She also reminds the group that they need to come up with a solution for Rumi's social struggles. After helping set up the bonfire, Hikigaya heads toward the riverbank, where he finds Komachi and Yui in swimsuits. Feeling awkward, he tries to avert his gaze from Yui but can't help sneaking a glance at her outfit, which makes him feel guilty. Just then, Yukino approaches, and Hikigaya tries to shake off his embarrassment by teasing her about her physique, earning him a smack from Shizuka. While everyone is having fun, Hikigaya retreats to a corner where Rumi joins him. Soon, Yui and Yukino approach, and their conversation naturally shifts to Rumi's struggles with making friends. As Rumi opens up about her concerns, Hikigaya shares his controversial plan to help her by breaking apart the existing friendships within her group. The idea makes everyone uncomfortable, but with no better alternatives, they reluctantly agree to follow his lead. That night, during the test of courage, Hikigaya sets up his plan. As Rumi's group ventures deep into the forest, Yumiko and the others frighten them by claiming that their behavior has angered them. They demand that the group leave behind 3 of their members if they want to be spared. Under pressure, the group quickly sacrifices Rumi, followed by arguing over who should go next. Hikigaya observes that when faced with danger, people prioritize their own survival, revealing the fragility of their friendships. Just as the girls are about to abandon another friend, Hikigaya is ready to step in, but Rumi surprises everyone by using her camera flash to save her friends, dispersing the tension. The girls run off, shaken but unscathed. Afterward, Shizuka praises Hikigaya for his unconventional efforts, noting that while his methods were harsh, they may have long-term benefits for Rumi. Yukino also compliments Hikigaya, while Hayato reflects on whether they could have been friends if they had attended the same middle school. The next day, as everyone prepares to leave, Yukino's older sister Haruno arrives in a black limousine to pick her up. Haruno teases Hikage and Yukino, mentioning that their mother is waiting, which makes Yukino visibly uneasy. As the limousine drives away, Hikage and Yui realize that it is the same car involved in the accident when Hikage saved Yui's dog. Though Hikage pretends not to remember, he silently acknowledges the memory. As summer vacation ends, Hikage reflects on how he hasn't seen Yukino since the camp. Meanwhile, at home, their cat gets teased by Sable. Yui drops by to pick up her dog and, before leaving, invites Hikage and Kamachi to a fireworks event. Kamachi, knowing what Yui is trying to do, insists that her brother should go, even though Hikage remains oblivious to Yui's feelings. The next day, Hikage meets Yui, who is wearing a yukata. He compliments her, though he remains emotionally detached, and they head to the train station. On the train, Yui stumbles, and Hikage, in his usual self-deprecating manner, comments that if he were a normal guy, he might have fallen in love at that moment. At the festival, they run into Sagami, a classmate who mocks Yui for being with Hikage. Not wanting to be a burden, Hikage quietly slips away to another stall. Yui eventually rejoins him, and they share apple candy as the fireworks begin. While searching for a good spot to watch the fireworks, Yui compliments Hikage for his kindness. Hikage, in his typical cynical tone, jokes that the world would have ended if he had chosen to take revenge on those who hurt him. Their conversation is interrupted by Haruno, Yukino's older sister, who invites them to a VIP area to watch the fireworks. Haruno teases Hikage about cheating on Yukino with Yui, making Yui embarrassed. Haruno then comments on how Yukino will end up alone again, which shocks both Yui and Hikage. To divert the conversation, Hikage asks Haruno about her life. Haruno explains that their strict mother forces her to attend social events, while Yukino handles things differently. Before leaving, Haruno subtly brings up the accident, casually mentioning that there are no scratches left on their car, reminding Hikage of the incident where Yukino's car hit him. This realization makes Hikage feel uneasy, and Yui notices his shift in mood. When she asks him about it, Hikage brushes it off, saying Yukino never mentioned the accident. As they walk home, Yui muses that even without the accident, she believes they would have still met and grown close. Before she can finish her thought, her mother calls, and she leaves. After the summer break, Hikage finally meets Yukino again. She tries to talk to him about the accident, but he ignores her, walking away, filled with self-loathing for how he handled the situation and how he feels about it. As the Cold War between Yukino and Hikage intensifies, Yui desperately tries to mend their relationship but finds no success. Meanwhile, Hikage is appointed by Shizuka as a committee member for the upcoming cultural festival. While he's dozing off in the classroom, the students discuss who will be the female representative. Sagami, trying to impress, volunteers, but Hayato insists the role should go to someone responsible, prompting her to take it. During the first meeting, Student Council President Meguri suggests Yukino lead the committee, but Yukino declines, leaving Sagami to claim the leadership role, hoping to test her skills. Afterward, Yukino, Hikage, and Yui discuss suspending the service club's activities until the cultural festival ends. As they prepare to leave, Sagami enters and requests Yukino's help with her new role. Yukino declines at first, but when Sagami insists, Yukino agrees to guide her rather than take over, a response that frustrates both Yui and Hikage. Yui confronts Yukino, but when she struggles to express her feelings, she leaves, asking Hikage to support Yukino when she needs it. In subsequent meetings, Yukino steps up and takes charge, efficiently organizing the festival preparations while Sagami feels sidelined by Yukino's commanding presence. Meanwhile, Hikage is assigned a role in the class play, but he dismisses it as he's already busy trying to shift some responsibilities onto Seika. At one point, Haruno shows up and playfully teases Yukino, requesting to join the festival as a volunteer. Sagami, eager to please, allows it. Haruno then encourages the committee to enjoy the festival, which Sagami interprets as a cue to slack off. Many committee members, including Sagami, start skipping their duties, leaving the remaining students, including Yukino, to pick up the slack. Hayato, noticing the increasing workload, volunteers to help out. Seeing this, Hikage reflects on the struggles of working alone but ultimately decides to side with Yukino. To take the pressure off her, he deliberately claims that he's lazy and doesn't want to work hard, which prompts Yukino to accept the blame, albeit reluctantly. The next day, Shizuka informs the committee that Yukino is on leave due to illness. This news bothers Hikage, who feels increasingly concerned about Yukino's well-being amidst the festival preparations and their unresolved tension. As Hayato and Seika practice for their drama, Yui receives a call from Hikage informing her that Yukino is sick. Concerned, they decide to visit her after school. Upon arriving at Yukino's apartment complex, Hikage feels a bit overwhelmed by its appearance. Yui contacts Yukino, seeking permission to enter her apartment. When they step inside, Hikigaya is once again struck by how stylish and well-kept Yukino's room is. Yukino greets them and asks about the reason for their visit. A strange silence falls over the room as Yui tries to encourage Yukino to lean on them for support. However, Yukino deflects her words and serves tea instead. After a brief visit, Hikigaya decides to leave, but not before Yukino expresses her appreciation for Yui's thoughtfulness. The next day, the committee gathers to brainstorm slogans for the festival. Hikigaya contributes by criticizing the current slogan, stating that the committee has only given him extra work that he resents. His blunt honesty makes Yukino laugh, prompting her to suggest postponing the meeting so everyone can bring new ideas. However, Hikigaya's remarks cause the other committee members to resent him for not pulling his weight. Yukino suggests that Hikigaya should try to clear up the misunderstandings surrounding his attitude. He responds that he only sought a solution and doesn't care if people dislike him for it. This exchange leads Yukino to say goodbye to Hikigaya in a somewhat frustrated tone. The next day, after deciding on a slogan, the committee throws itself into preparations for the cultural festival. Sagami feels increasingly left out of the group dynamic. During this time, Haruno approaches Hikigaya to tease him about the amount of work he's doing, which leads Yukino to assign even more tasks to him, claiming he is sulking. As the cultural festival begins, excitement fills the air. Sagami is called on stage to present, but she falters under pressure and the audience begins to mock her. Afterward, Hikigaya visits his classroom and observes Hayato and Seika performing their skit. Watching from the sidelines, he feels a sense of relief that he chose not to participate in the skit. Later, as Hikigaya sits outside his classroom, Yui joins him. He asks her what happened after he left the previous night. Yui informs him that Yukino didn't say much but feels glad that Yukino is beginning to open up to her. She then pulls out a box of sweets. Hikigaya, initially hesitant about the treats, ends up trying them anyway. When he asks about the price, Yui playfully suggests he can treat her another time, which makes Hikigaya realize it could turn into a date. Meanwhile, Sagami hides from everyone, feeling burdened by her earlier mistakes and embarrassed by her poor performance. As the cultural festival continues, Hikigaya is hard at work when his sister Komachi spots him. She finds his dedication amusing and heads off to explore the various stalls. Shortly after, Hikigaya encounters Yukino, and they make their way toward the closing ceremony, where Haruno is set to perform a musical piece. Yukino compliments Haruno's talent as they enjoy the performance together. During the show, a fellow student informs Yukino that Sagami is missing, prompting her to gather other students to search for her. Yukino asks Hikigaya to help find Sagami, but he hesitates, requesting more time. Meanwhile, Hayato and his group decide to perform another song, showcasing their talents to the crowd. Yukino contacts her sister, Haruno, for assistance, who agrees to help due to Yukino's determined demeanor. Hikigaya takes this opportunity to compliment Yukino on her resilience. As Yukino reaches out for help, Hikigaya sets out to find Sagami. He contacts Yoshiteru, asking him to suggest places where Sagami might be hiding. Yoshiteru provides a few potential locations, and Hikigaya eventually locates Sagami at the top of a laboratory, sulking. When he confronts her, Sagami admits she is upset because Yukino has stolen the spotlight, despite having initially sought her help. Hikigaya realizes that he cannot persuade Sagami due to her pessimistic mindset. However, Hayato and his group arrive to encourage her to come down, but she refuses. In a last-ditch effort, Hikigaya manipulates the situation by exposing Sagami's true motives, guilt-tripping her into returning to the ceremony. This tactic infuriates Hayato, who tackles Hikigaya and criticizes him for always playing the victim. Meanwhile, Yui, Yukino, Haruno, Meguri, and Shizuka come together to perform an additional musical piece, buying enough time for Sagami to gather herself and return to deliver the closing speech. After the ceremony, reactions to Hikigaya's actions are mixed. While some students are critical, Shizuka praises Hikigaya for his ability to resolve issues but laments that he often sacrifices himself in the process. Later that evening, Hikigaya and Yukino share a conversation in the service club room, reflecting on their first encounter and the progress they've made in understanding each other. Yukino hints at the development of their friendship, indicating a deeper connection between them. Just then, Yui arrives and invites both of them to an after-party organized by Hayato to celebrate the festival's success. As the evening draws to a close, Hikigaya contemplates the fleeting nature of life and the realization that certain moments cannot be recreated. He acknowledges the significance of seemingly trivial times spent in the service club, understanding that Yui might miss these simple yet valuable moments once they fade away. As the cultural festival wraps up and things return to normal, the service club introduces a new email system for students to reach out with their problem. Their first email comes from a student expressing a desire to make the upcoming sports festival memorable. The trio comments on the previous sports gala, reminiscing about past events when Maki enters the club room. She reveals that she is the one who sent the email and looks forward to their assistance. Meguri, the student council president, joins the conversation and shares her goal of organizing something special for the featured events, inviting the service club to their meeting happening right now. During the meeting, the service club pitches various ideas, but Shizuka repeatedly rejects them for multiple reasons. Frustrated, Hikigaya suggests they are not suitable for this task and proposes outsourcing some ideas. They reach out to Yoshiteru and Hina, who come up with elaborate yet memorable games that Shizuka ultimately agrees to. With fresh ideas in hand, everyone prepares for the upcoming event. On the day of the sports festival, Meguri expresses her gratitude to the service club for helping organize such a successful event. Yukino claims they will help her win as well. The students participate in various games, with the white team taking the lead, featuring Hayato as their star player, while the red team, though trailing, stays close behind. As the featured events begin, the red team realizes they must win both events to secure victory. Yukino leads the girls' team to a win, and afterward, she asks Hikigaya to keep his promise. With the boys' event approaching, Hikigaya uncovers Hina's devious intentions over the microphone, revealing her ulterior motives. To counter this, Hikigaya devises a twofold deception strategy with Yoshiteru, ensuring the others protect Seika while they focus on Hayato during the boys' event. Hikigaya disguises himself with bandages to blend in as a white team member, stealthily approaching the pole. Despite Hayato's attempts to intervene, Hikigaya reveals his double bluff, allowing Yoshiteru to charge at the pole and secure a win for the red team, much to the celebration of their teammates. However, the following day in the club room, they learn that the boys' team has been disqualified due to the illegality of Hikigaya's plan. Although disappointed, they promise to win at next year's festival. Hikigaya points out the possibility that they might not be on the same team next year, serving as motivation for Yukino to strive even harder. A few days later, as life goes on, Seika decides to ask Hikigaya to be her partner for the upcoming trip. Meanwhile, Hayato and Hina meet up with their friends after class. In the service club room, Hikigaya and the others enjoy some tea together, and the conversation shifts to the upcoming field trip. Yukino shares her detailed plans with great enthusiasm, leaving Hikigaya and Yui wondering if she's secretly excited but just doesn't want to admit it. Later, Tobe and Hayato enter the classroom to ask the service club members for a favor. However, they hesitate to talk since Hikigaya is present. Yui and Yukino quickly take Hikigaya's side, insisting that Tobe and Hayato leave the room. This surprises Hikigaya, who decides it's time to be honest. He reveals that he has feelings for Hina and wants the service club's help to confess during the trip. Yui and Yukino find themselves disagreeing on how to help Tobe, which leads to a deadlock in decision-making. In the end, Hikigaya agrees with Yui's idea and encourages Tobe to think about the potential risks involved in confessing his feelings. Meanwhile, Yui comes up with various plans to create a chance for Tobe to express his feelings during the field trip. Their conversation gets interrupted by Hina's unexpected arrival. Hina expresses her satisfaction with how things are going in their group and stresses her desire for everyone, including Hikigaya and the service club, to build better relationships with Tobe. Hina seems to want to have more fun for herself, and to Hikigaya's surprise, she specifically singles him out, leaving him confused about what she really wants. The next day, the students embark on their eagerly awaited field trip. As they settle into their seats on the bus, Yui makes a determined effort to arrange for Tobe and Hina to sit together, but her plans don't work out. Throughout the first day of the trip, Yui keeps trying to create chances for Tobe and Hina to spend time together, but Hikigaya notices that Hayato seems to be casting doubt on her matchmaking efforts. Later that evening, while sitting in the hotel lobby, Hikigaya unexpectedly runs into Yukino, who is trying to sneak out to get some food. Yukino, who secretly enjoys cute things, approaches Hikigaya. As they talk about Tobe's request, they notice Shizuka sneaking out of the hotel. When Shizuka sees Hikigaya and Yukino, she panics and tries to bribe them with a tempting offer of ramen in exchange for their silence about her secret outing. As night falls, Hikigaya and Yukino walk back to the hotel together. However, Yukino starts to feel uneasy and expresses her reluctance about being seen together by others. Feeling awkward, Hikigaya waits outside while Yukino goes into the hotel alone. The whole situation leaves Hikigaya with a lot to think about, especially regarding his feelings for Hina and the complicated dynamics within their group. Hikigaya wakes up from a dream where he remembers his sister Kamachi's list of souvenirs for their trip. Excitedly, the group gets ready to head out to the haunted house exhibit. While they're there, Hina suddenly lets out a creepy laugh that makes everyone scream in fright. In the chaos, everyone clings to Hikigaya for support, except for Seika, who seems to be enjoying the spooky atmosphere. During one particularly scary moment, Yui accidentally bumps her head into Hikigaya, leaving both of them startled. This surprise causes Saki to run away in fear, with Seika chasing after her. Hikigaya then reaches out to help Yui up, which takes them both by surprise. It feels like love is in the air. After the haunted house tour, they unexpectedly meet Yukino at a temple. Yukino offers her help by giving them a list of fun places that girls would enjoy. Later that night, Hikigaya goes to a convenience store and runs into Yumiko, who rudely warns him to keep away from Hina and not to interfere with her life. Yumiko confesses that she has been trying to set Hina up with someone, which leads to Hina pretending not to know her at all. Hikigaya finally realizes that Hina's visits to the service club were not just casual. He reassures Yumiko that everything will work out and hints at Hayato's upcoming actions, which makes Yumiko feel a bit better. The next day, the service club members hang out together and run into Hayato's group by chance. Hina reminds Hikigaya about her earlier requests and asks how things are going with Tobe. Afterward, the service club decides to visit a bamboo forest, believing it would be the perfect spot for Tobe to confess his feelings to Hina. Tobe starts to get nervous, but his friends try to calm him down. Meanwhile, Hayato's uncooperative behavior starts to show again. He suddenly leaves the hotel, and Hikigaya follows him. They end up in a heated argument about Hayato's actions. Hikigaya realizes that Hayato wants to keep their friendship shallow and superficial, without any real growth. Frustrated, they part ways, both unwilling to rely on each other during the confession. In the beautifully lit bamboo forest, Hikigaya asks Tobe what he would do if Hina rejects him. Tobe confidently declares that he won't give up easily. Hikigaya encourages him to stay strong and keep trying until the very end. Yukino and Yui playfully tease Hikigaya about his approach, but he stays quiet when they question his strategy. Nevertheless, Yukino and Yui seem to support him. Hikigaya starts to think logically and comes up with a plan to protect Tobe from the pain of rejection while also considering Hayato's group. He decides to step forward and makes a fake confession to Hina, surprising everyone except Tobe and Hayato. Hina rejects Hikigaya, clearly stating that she doesn't want to be in a relationship. This rejection makes Tobe feel determined to keep trying. Hayato realizes that Hikigaya's approach was the only solution available, and he apologizes for not being supportive. Yukino, however, is furious with Hikigaya's method and angrily walks away. Yui then shares her thoughts and asks Hikigaya not to do something like that again. Hikigaya stands firm in his beliefs and refuses to change his approach. Yui reluctantly agrees, but she feels that things are back to normal, even though they lack consideration for others. She leaves with tears in her eyes. The following day, Hina meets Hikigaya on the rooftop of Kyoto Station to thank him for what he did. During their conversation, Hikigaya realizes that Hina wanted to prevent Tobe from confessing. He suspects she may have made a similar request to Hayato as well, further complicating the situation. After the trip, Hikigaya returns home, where his sister Komachi checks in on him. However, he responds vaguely, which leads to a conflict between them. In class, Hikigaya notices that Hayato's group is behaving normally, but he feels a sense of unhappiness as he heads to the club room. Once he enters, the atmosphere feels tense. Yui expresses her regret for not fully understanding their group dynamics, and Yukino tries to console her. Hikigaya suggests they move on and return to their usual routine, but Yukino seems troubled by his words and prepares to share her thoughts when Shizuka interrupts with a request about Iroha's nomination for the Student Council President election. Iroha reluctantly reveals that she entered the race due to pressure from her friends and wishes to forfeit her nomination without damaging her image. Hikigaya proposes a strategy to give an intentionally terrible campaign speech to protect Iroha's reputation. However, both Yui and Yukino disapprove of this idea. Yukino, in a hostile and emotional manner, suggests they support another candidate instead. Hikigaya counters that no one has announced a candidate yet, leading Yukino to assert that there is no reason for them to work together or choose the same approach. Upset by her words, Hikigaya abruptly leaves the club, his mind echoing Yukino's remark about their mutual disdain for superficiality. Shizuka questions Hikigaya about the situation, advising him that his methods won't truly help the person he aims to assist. Later that night, Hikigaya encounters Haruno at a restaurant. She expresses disappointment that Yukino isn't making an effort to run for student council president. Kaori and her friend notice Hikigaya and strike up a conversation, surprised to learn he attends Sabu High School. Kaori mistakenly assumes Haruno is Hikigaya's girlfriend, but he quickly clarifies that they're not in a relationship. Haruno then probes Kaori about Hikigaya's past romantic life, which surprises him further when Kaori casually mentions that Hikigaya had once asked her out. Kaori expresses interest in meeting Hayato, but Hikigaya denies any connection with him. Haruno promises to introduce Kaori and her friends to Hayato, and she calls him to join them later. As Kaori and her friends leave, Hayato questions Haruno's motives and Hikigaya's involvement in the situation. He reveals that Haruno has feelings for Hikigaya, but Hikigaya dismisses this idea, believing that Haruno is simply toying with him. Hayato explains that Haruno manipulates those she likes while destroying those she hates, which Hikigaya finds unsettling. The following morning, Yui approaches Hikigaya and invites him to join the club for another session regarding Iroha's request. Inside the club room, Hikigaya begins by pointing out the flaws in their current approach, emphasizing that it lacks sustainability. In response, Yukino criticizes Hikigaya's tendency to evade problems instead of confronting them directly. At a loss for words, Hikigaya decides to leave the room, leaving their conversation unresolved. As Hikigaya is about to leave for home, Hayato approaches him and asks about his availability for Saturday. This request confuses Hikigaya, but Hayato explains that he wants to make plans for an outing that he previously discussed over text. Despite Hayato's insistence, Hikigaya declines, stating that he plans to relax over the weekend. Hayato bows respectfully and insists that Hikigaya should join them to help. But Hikigaya remains firm in his refusal. Back at home, Komachi is still upset with Hikigaya for declining Hayato's invitation. She hands him her phone and informs him that Haruno urges him to go on a date with Hayato. Haruno warns Hikigaya that if he refuses, she will personally drag him along. The next evening, Hayato and Hikigaya wait for the girls at station. Hayato expresses his appreciation for Hikigaya's presence, to which Hikigaya humbly claims that any credit belongs to Haruno. Soon, the girls arrive, and they walk alongside Hayato while Hikigaya trails a few steps behind. During their movie outing, Hikigaya realizes that Kaori treats him the same way she treats everyone else. After the film, they discuss it, and the girls are amazed by Hayato's calm demeanor during an explosion scene. Kaori teases Hikigaya about his reaction, which adds to the lighthearted atmosphere. While shopping, the girls decide to put on a fashion show for Hayato, and Hikigaya watches as Hina and Yumiko observe Hayato from a distance. Just before Yumiko can approach him, she trips and accidentally exposes her plot to Hikigaya, causing him to urge Hayato to move on and not get distracted. Later, they run into Tobe and Iroha. Iroha questions Hikigaya, and he reads between the lines to understand her intentions. They then choose a place to eat, and once again, Kaori makes fun of Hikigaya's choice. They head to a nearby cafe, where Haruno waves at Hikigaya. The girls tease him about his restaurant choice, which he enjoys, leading Hayato to express his dislike for their behavior, leaving everyone confused. Yukino and Yui arrive, revealing that Hayato invited them, praising Hikigaya and noting that he seems to get along better with the girls, especially Kaori and her friends. This causes Kaori and her friends to leave in discomfort. Haruno then provokes Yukino by comparing her to their mother, which leads Yukino to leave with Yui. Hikigaya questions Hayato about his actions, feeling uneasy about the situation. The next day, Shizuka informs Hikigaya that Yukino has decided to run for student council president. Hikigaya later confirms this with Yukino in front of Yui, who appears shocked by the news. After school, as Yui walks home with Hikigaya, she expresses her own desire to run for the election, hinting at her ambitions. Feeling guilty for not contributing enough to the club's activities, Hikigaya spends his time alone in his dark room. Komachi enters but ignores him at first, rummaging through the refrigerator. Hikigaya decides to offer to make coffee and seeks advice from her. As they talk, they resolve some of their earlier conflicts, leading Hikigaya to explain his situation in detail. Komachi understands Hikigaya's perspective but warns him that others might not see it the same way. She asks him to prevent Yukino and Yui from becoming candidates for the student council to save the club from potential issues. The next day, Hikigaya notices Yui preparing her campaign with Yumiko and Hina. Feeling motivated to contribute, he heads to the school library, where he runs into Yoshiteru. Yoshiteru offers his support, and they discuss the situation over a meal with others, each providing insights into the campaign. Hikigaya realizes that he made a mistake and comes up with a strategy based on Iroha's desire to protect her public image. He asks Saki for a list of potential candidates for the student council presidency, and she even suggests Hikigaya as a possibility. That night, Hikigaya and Yoshiteru create a campaign Twitter account for each candidate. As the tweets gain traction among the students at school, Hikigaya contacts Yoshiteru to finalize his plan. The next day, he visits Iroha and realizes that she has feelings for Hayato. While discussing Kaori and her friend, Hikigaya carefully chooses his words to provoke Iroha's desire for revenge against her classmates, who have been pressuring her. He reveals that the list of candidates consists of nominations from the Twitter account and highlights the advantages of becoming president, including more time spent with Hayato, which convinces Iroha to comply. Later, Hikigaya arrives at the service club, where Yukino and Yui are still determined to pursue their candidacy. Hikigaya presents them with the list, stating that Iroha has agreed to run for student council president. Yukino questions whether Hikigaya orchestrated this, but he insists that unknown volunteers were responsible for convincing Yukino to step back, as her reason for running is no longer valid. He suggests that she inform Shizuka about the resolution. Hikigaya apologizes to Yui for her hard work, but she reassures him, even trying to fix his hair as she speaks. She explains that she knew she could never surpass Yukino. Even if she won, she wouldn't be able to stay in the club. Yui expresses her gratitude to Hikigaya for protecting her favorite place, emphasizing that he did his best, even if he believes he didn't do anything significant. She suggests that he might be carrying hidden guilt in his heart. When the election results are announced, Iroha emerges as the new student council president. Hikigaya congratulates her and offers to help carry her things. Iroha expresses her hope that Yukino will become president and Yui will be the vice president, with Hikigaya handling general affairs. She shares her desire to continue visiting and reminiscing about the fun times they could have had during cultural and athletic festivals, even after her graduation. This conversation leaves Hikigaya pondering the reality that there is no reset button in life, making him reflect on the choices they all must make moving forward. In the club room, Yui and Hikigaya try to act normally, but Yukino wears a forced smile that hints at the tension in the atmosphere. Hikigaya finds himself lost in thought as he watches Hayato's group interact. Yui notices his distraction and questions him about it. They decide to head to the club together. Once in the club room, while Yui and Yukino engage in conversation, Hikigaya reflects on why he is so fixated on Hayato's group. Suddenly, Iroha knocks on the door, requesting their attention. She explains that she needs to plan a Christmas event as part of her duties on the student council, and mentions how Shizuka encouraged her to take on this responsibility. When Yukino asks for their opinions on Iroha's request, Yui is eager to accept, while Hikigaya opposes the idea. He observes Yukino's odd behavior and states that Iroha shouldn't rely on others, dismissing her request. Iroha then reveals that she agreed to take on the role because of Hikigaya, which makes him realize he should consider her feelings outside the club context. He offers to help Iroha personally rather than as a club duty, and she agrees. They decide to meet at the conference venue. As Iroha exits a shop with bags and a sign, she misunderstands Hikigaya's offer to carry them, rejecting him on the spot. Hikigaya feels a bit defeated, thinking, "My poor guy, there is no place for kindness in this world." Inside the seminar hall, Taminawa, the president of another school, leads the organization for the Christmas joint event. Hikigaya unexpectedly runs into Kaori, who is also volunteering for the event. During the conference, he watches the committee members toss around ideas, noticing Taminawa repetitively using similar phrases in both English and Japanese, leading Hikigaya to think they sound nonsensical. Hikigaya sees that Iroha seems to get along better with the members from the opposing side than with her own student council, who hold her in high regard. The following day, the planning committee decides to expand their event despite their limited resources. Hikigaya explains to Iroha that they lack the necessary manpower, time, and funds for a larger event. Feeling desperate, he mimics the behavior of others and indirectly rejects the idea of involving other high schools, but this idea gets shot down. Eventually, the committee proposes incorporating a game education theme by involving a local elementary school. After the meeting, Hikigaya sits down to sip his coffee when Kaori approaches him. She asks if he was part of the student council in middle school, but he refuses. Jokingly, she asks about Hikigaya's girlfriend, to which he quickly denies, explaining that his relationship with the girls from the double date is strictly that of club mates. Kaori is surprised to learn that Hikigaya is part of a club and asks for its name. He responds with Service Club, causing Kaori to burst into laughter. Hikigaya can't help but think that Kaori seems a bit eccentric, as if she has a loose nut in her head. Hikigaya and Yui head to the Service Club, where Hikigaya informs her that he will be leaving early until Christmas. Yui mentions that she knows he is helping Iroha, prompting Hikigaya to ask if Yukino is aware of this. Yui responds that they can see his actions. She wonders if Yukino genuinely wants to become president and whether accepting Iroha's request might impact their relationship. But Hikigaya has his doubts about Yukino's true feelings. Afterward, Hikigaya seeks permission from Yukino to leave early and sets out to find Iroha, but she is nowhere to be found. He returns to school and ends up having an awkward conversation with Hayato about their motivations for helping others. Eventually, Hikigaya goes back to the community center, where he finds Iroha looking physically drained. The planning committee has now included elementary school students who seem unsure of what to do. One brave girl volunteers to approach them for guidance, and to Hikigaya's surprise, the girl is Rumi. Memories of their past interactions flood Hikigaya's mind as he watches her. Iroha struggles to figure out what tasks to assign to the elementary students. So Hikigaya suggests that they let the kids take charge and get involved in decorating. He engages in a discussion with Iroha about the urgent need to finalize a plan for the upcoming Christmas event to avoid wasting manpower. Despite their efforts, Taminawa continues to ignore Hikigaya's requests and throws different ideas their way. On his way home, Hikigaya unexpectedly runs into Saki and they decide to have dinner together. Saki notices Hikagea's exhaustion and asks him about it. He briefly explains the situation, and Saki expresses admiration for Hikagea's calm demeanor, but he doubts that he is as cool as she thinks. The next day in the planning committee, Hikagea and the vice president realize that their plans have exceeded the budget. They must either secure additional funds or scale down the event. Iroha informs them that the elementary school kids have finished decorating, and Hikagea assigns her the next task. This realization makes him feel like he is deviating from the club's principles by doing their job instead of just lending a hand. Hikagea discusses the budget issue with Iroha again, but the outcome remains uncertain. Spotting Rumi decorating alone, he offers to help her, but she responds sarcastically. Despite her reaction, Hikagea insists on assisting her, and once they finish, he interrupts Rumi's gratitude to offer help to her classmate. After the meeting, Hikagea feels that his efforts to support Rumi are still inadequate. Coincidentally, he encounters Yukino, who admits that she knows Hikagea has been helping Iroha and that he didn't need to lie about it. Hikagea tries to explain himself, but his words seem to fall on deaf ears. Yukino reassures him that he doesn't have to force himself to attend the club since he is always considerate of everyone. Sitting on a bench, Hikagea reflects on Yukino's words about not forcing himself to stay in the club. Suddenly, Shizuka honks her car horn and offers him a ride home. She asks if he's okay with a detour, and as she hums while driving, Hikagea nearly falls asleep. They arrive at a bridge overlooking a river, where Shizuka tosses him a can, prompting Hikagea to explain the situation with the planning committee's inaction and the president's fear of causing problems. Shizuka listens and then clarifies that she was asking about Hikagea and Yukino, not the planning committee. She advises him to think critically, analyze the situation, and eliminate potential solutions one by one to find the answer he seeks. Hikagea expresses doubts about whether this approach will help him understand others better. Shizuka candidly admits to making mistakes in her life, which has led to her current single status. Surprisingly, Hikagea responds that no one is perfect. However, Shizuka expresses her wish for him to be that person who can make a difference. Taking Shizuka's advice to heart, Hikagea stays up all night calculating a solution. He realizes the problem at hand, questions his motives during the election, and acknowledges his need for help. The next morning, Hikagea knocks on the service club's door, surprising Yui and Yukino. He explains the dire state of the Christmas event, takes responsibility for Iroha's situation, and acknowledges Rumi's unchanged status. Hikagea requests their assistance and admits his mistakes. Yukino challenges him, questioning if he genuinely feels responsible, and tells him to fix his errors. This leaves Yui and Hikagea shocked. Yui disagrees, asserting that Hikagea isn't solely to blame and that they all share the responsibility, including Yukino. This leads to a tense moment where Yukino accuses Yui of playing dirty and not speaking up herself. Hikagea interrupts, stating that he won't accept their words at face value and attempts to understand the underlying meanings behind their arguments. In a vulnerable moment, both Yukino and Yui are stunned to see Hikagea on the verge of tears, struggling to articulate his thoughts. Finally, he declares that he seeks something genuine between them, which shocks Yukino. She apologizes, runs away, and slams the club door. Yui asks Hikagea to follow her and hold hands, but he chooses to walk alone. They find Yukino, who questions Hikagea about the meaning of genuine. Yui comforts Yukino, admitting that she also doesn't understand it yet, and they both cry while hugging. Yukino ultimately accepts Hikagea's request for something real between them, and Yui promises to help as well. Hikagea finds himself lying on the sofa, feeling embarrassed about his recent request to the service club. Komachi enters the room and playfully questions him about it. He explains that he's going through a minor identity crisis, but Komachi lightens the mood by imitating him and assures him that she likes him just the way he is. The next day at the service club, Yukino asks about the time and place for their meeting. Hikagea suggests waiting for Yui's arrival so they only have to explain the plans once. Yukino agrees, and when Yui arrives, she happily closes the gap between herself and Yukino. At the community center, Yukino and Yui witness Iroha casually handing her grocery bag to Hikagea, leaving them both in silent surprise. After the session, Yukino and Yui accept the committee's lack of progress, and Yui asks Hikagea about the plan, but they're all surprised to discover he's clueless as well. They decide to visit Shizuka in the staff room. She listens to their problems and is surprised by their lack of understanding about Christmas celebrations. To help them learn more about Christmas parties, Shizuka offers them 4 tickets to Destinyland, which she won at a marriage party. Hikagea and Yukino hesitate due to the timing, but Yui convinces Yukino by mentioning Panson's bamboo fight, which intrigues Yukino's interest, though she still refuses. Hikagea then asks for help in choosing a present for Komachi, which prompts Yukino to finally agree to go, making Shizuka smile. Iroha inquires if it will just be the 4 of them, and Yukino reveals she has a yearly pass, prompting Iroha to invite another person while keeping it a secret. At the station, Hikigaya spots his club mates Iroha, Hayato, and his group members, which surprises him. They all enter the amusement park together. Yui asks Hikigaya to take various pictures, including one with just the club members, while waiting for a ride. Hikigaya asks Hayato if he can ride with him during both Iroha and Yumiko, but suggests Hina help Tobe instead, leading to her playful retaliation. After a ride, Iroha seems tired and nearly trips, but Yumiko catches her and offers her water, causing Iroha to think it was Hayato. The group enjoys the Pants and Bam fight ride, although Yukino asks them to stay silent, intriguing Hikigaya. At a Pantsen corner, Yumiko shares her opinion that Pantsen isn't cute, causing Yukino to glare and approach her angrily. However, AA defends Pantsen's cuteness to Hayato, soothing Yukino. While searching for Komachi's present, Yui uses a Pantsen puppet to ask Hikigaya about his desires, reminding him of his requests and making Yui blush. Yui expresses her wish to visit the amusement park again, recalling Hikigaya's promise of honey toast. Yukino then joins them with an armful of Pantsen dolls, declaring that the character is surely cute. The group briefly separates, with Yukino and Hikigaya on one side of a barricade, as they wait for Yui. Hikigaya notices Yukino's unease with rides. During a ride, Yukino explains her fear, which stems from her sister's meddling, and asks Hikigaya for help. As the ride moves along, they reunite with Yui and enjoy the fireworks. However, Hikigaya observes Iroha and Hayato in a distant encounter, where Iroha seems to confess her feelings, but Hayato responds negatively, leaving Iroha in tears. Hayato appears sorrowful as he looks up at the sky, further deepening the emotional atmosphere. After Hayato rejects Iroha, he encounters Hikigaya and expresses feeling flat. He believes Iroha's confession was influenced by Hikigaya's presence. Hayato praises Hikigaya for his ability to change people, admitting that he isn't the nice guy everyone perceives him to be. On the train ride home, Iroha and the service club members part ways, but Iroha manipulates Hikigaya into staying behind to help her with her heavy bags. Along the way, she reveals that her actions were influenced by the recent dispute in the club and Hikigaya's desire for something genuine. The next day during the student council meeting, Hikigaya proposes an idea, but it gets rejected again. The planning committee suggests splitting the workload for a Christmas play, but Taminawa and his team object. This leads to Hikigaya addressing the budget and manpower concerns, resulting in a communication breakdown. Yukino and Yui intervene, suggesting a compromise, while Iroha scolds Hikigaya and Yukino for their behavior. Later, Hikigaya accepts Kaori's offer of a tin tea drink. During their conversation, she admits to seeing him differently but believes they're not compatible for a romantic relationship, which Hikigaya agrees with. Kaori suggests that they should be friends and invites him to their junior high reunion, but Hikigaya bluntly rejects the offer. On the day of the event, Hikigaya helps Rumi with decorations, offering assistance after she initially refuses. Yukino makes cakes, Yui packs cookies, and Iroha expresses nervousness while diligently performing her job. The children showcase their performance on stage, while elementary school angels distribute the cakes made by Yukino to the audience, including Hayato's group, as the presidents give instructions. The event unfolds successfully. Afterward, the service club members have tea in their room. Yui presents Hikigaya with a mug as a Christmas gift, while Yukino dismisses it as an upgrade from paper cups. Hikigaya thanks his club mates for fulfilling his request, but Yukino hints that it hasn't been completely fulfilled yet, surprising Yui. In the new year, the service club, along with Komachi, visits a shrine together. Yui asks Hikigaya to accompany her to buy Yukino's birthday present the next day, but she leaves when she receives a call from Yumiko. Hikigaya also tries to leave, but Komachi insists he stays with Yukino on the train. As the train moves, Yukino holds onto Hikigaya's sweater, and he asks about her visit to her family for the new year. Yukino doesn't think it will make a difference, so Hikigaya suggests she should try to go. He gets off at his stop, and Yukino smiles, wishing him a pleasant upcoming year as the train doors close. The next day, Yui and Hikigaya encounter Haruno and Hayato at a mall. Haruno contacts Yukino to join them, mentioning Hikigaya's presence. Yukino arrives and is surprised to see Yui there. Haruno criticizes Yukino for being late, but Hayato defends her. When Yukino's mother arrives, she is surprised to meet Yukino's friends. As the Yukino family and Hayato prepare to leave, an awkward situation arises as Yukino hesitates to go, caught between her friends and her family. Hikigaya holds the career path questionnaire, which determines their third-year elective choices. He and Yui opt for humanities, while Yumiko remains undecided. When Yumiko attempts to question Hayato about his choice, she receives a vague response. One of their friends brings up the rumor that Hayato is seriously dating Yukino, shocking everyone. However, Hayato coldly dismisses it, leading to discussions about the widespread rumors in the service club. They celebrate Yukino's birthday with cakes and presents, and Iroha joins them, inquiring about the rumors. Yukino responds with a cold glare, and Iroha reveals that girls have been vying for Hayato's attention, demonstrating it in a way that flusters Hikage. Later, Yumiko confronts them about the rumors, but Yukino brushes them off, causing Yumiko to become angry and bitter. Tensions rise in the room as Yui tries to calm Yumiko while Hikage attempts to support Yukino. Yukino smiles warmly, expressing that it's enough for those close to her to understand. Yumiko tearfully reveals her desire for a closer relationship with Hayato. Hikage takes note of Yumiko's request. The next day, he waits for Hayato on the soccer field, but Hayato gives an indifferent response to Hikage's question. Later, Hikage has lunch with Saki, discussing their career paths and relying on him in the future. After that, Hikage visits Iroha along with Yui and Yukino. Yukino asks Haruno about Hayato's career path, but Haruno replies rudely. In the evening, Haruno asks Hikage to accompany her to the station and inquires whether he has asked about Yukino and Hayato's career paths. Hikage denies it, prompting Haruno to request him to find out Yukino's choice so they can compare answers later. Hikage strategizes at home and calls Saki for assistance. The next morning, during the marathon, Iroha encourages Hayato, prompting Yumiko to do the same. Hikage and Hayato sprint ahead, but Hikage provokes Hayato with questions about Yumiko and his career path. Hayato's inferiority complex resurfaces, and he expresses his hatred for Hikage before sprinting ahead. Hikage falls, while Hayato confidently runs, ultimately winning the race and dismissing the rumors about Yukino and himself. After the race, Hikage goes to the infirmary and finds Yukino there. They engage in their usual banter while Hikage searches for disinfectant. Yukino insists on treating his wound and reveals that she has chosen humanities for her career path, ensuring they will be together for another year. Leaving the infirmary, Yui informs them about the party celebrating Hayato's victory at the pub. Yukino thanks Hayato for his consideration amidst the rumors, and he acknowledges her growth. Hayato explains to Hikage that Yukino has evolved independently due to Hikage's influence. Hikage expresses his initial hatred toward Hayato, which Hayato finds amusing, and they share a moment of laughter, reflecting on their complex relationships and personal growth. After some time, Haruno meets Hikage at an open cafe, probing him about Yukino's career path choice. He refuses to reveal it, prompting Haruno to criticize Yukino for being unchanged. When Hikage questions her motives, Haruno suggests that Yukino's trust in him is not genuine. The next day in class, Hayato's friends discuss their desire for Valentine's chocolates, revealing that Hayato is reluctant to accept any, catching Yumiko's attention. Yui finds it strange to receive chocolates from strangers. She catches up with Hikage, and they head toward the service club, where they meet Iroha. She asks about Hikage's sweet preference, and Yui informs them of Hayato's decision not to accept chocolates, surprising Iroha. Yumiko and Hina seek help with Valentine's cookies, escalating the situation further when Saki enters with her chocolate-making request. Amidst all the young love, Hikage devises a plan to make Hayato accept the chocolate. Iroha plans an event and includes the service club members without informing Iroha, which surprises him. Yui assists Yukino while Hikage tastes their cookies. The boys discuss the long-lasting relationships between schools at the community center, shocking the service club. Iroha reveals that Teminawa's school handled the budget, surprising everyone as Hikage thinks Iroha is growing. Haruno gets an invite while Saki brings her sister, and Yukino teaches Yumiko how to make chocolate, leading to Hayato praising Hikage's idea. Later, Hikage visits Iroha, who feeds him chocolate syrup, making him blush. Kaori asks Hikage how many Valentine's chocolates he received, drawing jealous stares, but Hikage claims he hasn't received any. Haruno mentions that Yukino gave chocolates to Hayato in elementary school, which prompts him to clarify the incident and relieve some tension. Haruno questions Yukino about who she plans to give Valentine's chocolate to this time, leading to a clumsy moment. Yui tries to lighten the atmosphere but feels burdened by it. Later, everyone distributes and enjoys chocolates while Shizuka praises Hikage for his growth. However, he feels like he's still going in circles. As they enjoy the moment, Hikage offers chocolate to Yukino, who assures him she helped make it. Haruno questions if their friendship is genuine, calling them boring, which makes everyone a bit sad. Hikage decides to embrace new experiences. They encounter Yukino's mom, who discusses her future, making Yukino uncomfortable. She promises to explain things afterward, and they all head home. Hikage offers to walk Yui home, but she declines. Alone, he ponders where to find something genuine in their complex relationships. Yukino apologizes for her mother's behavior, and Yui reassures her by sharing her own experiences with her mother. Hikage expresses concern about potentially affecting his sister's reputation since she will soon take their school entrance exam. Yui questions Hikagea's presumptions about his sister's exam, while Yukino wonders if he's being optimistic or pessimistic. Yukino offers Yui some homemade cookies, but feels pressured when Yui asks why Hikagea didn't receive any. Nervously, Yukino gives Hikagea a small plate of cookies, which he accepts and eats. As they prepare to leave, Yukino plans to give Hikagea a bag of cookies but hesitates. Yui realizes Yukino's intention, but before anything further can happen, Haruno arrives and insists on taking Yukino home, sparking a heated argument. Hikagea intervenes, suggesting they have a private discussion, but Yui invites Yukino to spend the night at her house, and Hikagea tags along without knowing why. Yukino apologizes for the earlier trouble, but Yui dismisses it. Meanwhile, Yui's mother enters the room, embarrassing Yui for being ushered out. Yui complains about her mother, but Yukino observes their close bond. Yukino starts to leave, but Yui suggests she spend the night, and Hikagea supports the idea. Yukino agrees and calls Haruno to inform her. Haruno asks to speak with Hikagea and compliments his kindness. Later, Hikagea leaves while Yui and Yukino discuss their plans. Yui surprises Yukino by suggesting they go on a date the next day. Hikagea wishes Komachi luck with her entrance exam and receives a date invitation from Yui, which he accepts. The next day, Hikagea and Yukino are surprised when Yui invites both of them on a date together. They visit Seika Life Park, where they all have a surprisingly enjoyable time. Hikagea and Yui show excitement, and even Yukino starts to loosen up. They come across a penguin exhibit, and Yukino separates herself from the group as she reads about the penguin's lifelong mating habits. Soon, Hikagea joins her inside while Yui takes pictures. Yukino compares herself to a lonely fish, blending in and following others. After their trip, Yui decides to come clean about her feelings and discuss their stagnant relationship. Yui proposes maintaining the status quo, but Hikagea rejects the idea, leading Yukino to state that they still have his request to address. Yukino ends their conversation by claiming she has a request to make, and Yui agrees to listen. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.